That kind of split leaves marks, not dramatic movie scene trauma. It is something subtler and harder to name. You become the person who can adapt fast and still feel weirdly unmoored. The one who learned two completely different rulebooks for friendship, work, and status. Different rules for dating, attention, and identity. One world told you to disappear when the streetlights came on. Psychologists and sociologists pay attention to this for a reason. Growing up in one reality and performing adulthood in another isn't just nostalgia. It can shape vigilance, self-trust, and the feeling you're always half translating yourself. Too analog for one side, too digitally fluent for the other. You're not imagining it. That kind of adolescence trains you differently, building a tolerance for uncertainty. But it also leaves a mark. Because then, almost overnight, the social rules changed. Suddenly everyone could reach everyone all the time. First a cell phone, then an email account you actually checked. Then Friendster, MySpace, Facebook, AIM windows multiplying across the screen. This is where the pain gets specific. You remember what it felt like to be unreachable, and what it feels like now to be permanently available. You know the old shame of standing somewhere alone, because plans were vague, and the new shame of seeing a message, freezing and feeling guilty. Feeling guilty for not answering fast enough. You learned intimacy in conversations that vanished into air, then had to relearn it in spaces, where every joke and typo was saved, where every photo and awkward phase could be archived forever. That is not a cute nostalgia detail. Developmental research shows your brain's flexibility is still maturing well into your 20s. If that split identity makes you feel hard to place, you're not imagining it. A lot of people in this in-between cohort move through life with contradictory habits, until you realize they were trained by two different worlds. You can sit across from someone and actually stay in the room with them. Not because you're morally superior, but because that was once the only option. At the same time, when a new app or platform shows up, you don't freeze. You just start clicking, testing, and adapting. That is not inconsistency. And it shows up in small, oddly intimate ways. You know what it felt like to leave the house on a bike and be gone for hours, with nobody able to track you or text you, or demand proof of where you were. If you missed a call, you missed it. If you embarrassed yourself at 13, it lived in maybe 3 people's memories. And a story that changed a little every time it got retold. A terrible haircut, a clumsy breakup, some chaotic night at a party. Those moments were real, but they weren't archived, they softened. That difference matters more than people think. Your relationship to your past was built in a world where memory could breathe. You were allowed to outgrow versions of yourself, without having them instantly resurface by a search bar or a tagged photo. So if you feel grateful for technology and weirdly protective of privacy, that makes sense. If part of you loves convenience, but misses being unreachable, that makes sense too. You didn't imagine a different pace of life. The pressure didn't come from one place. It came from the environment. First, technology froze what earlier generations could let blur. Awkward photos, old opinions, half-formed identities, and abandoned usernames. Every version of you could stay searchable long after you had outgrown it. The pressure there is external platforms, archives, timelines, and databases. Then, right when you were supposed to be building adult confidence, the economy delivered a second hit. Not a vague downturn, but a very specific rupture. At the exact stage when people are usually learning to trust a plan. Instead, a lot of people learned something harsher. Degrees didn't protect you. Loyalty didn't protect you. Doing everything right didn't guarantee stability. So if you notice yourself overthinking big purchases, keeping a mental escape route, hesitating before risk, or feeling your chest tighten when things seem too stable, that isn't irrational weakness. It is often the residue of timing. The system created instability. You adapted by becoming flexible, cautious, and fast to pivot. You were not broken first and then unsuccessful. That is the mechanism people miss when they flatten this group into a broad generational stereotype. They see adaptability and call it resilience, which is only half true. Resilience was the outcome. Repeated disruption was the teacher. You learned how to rewire the VCR, burn the CD, set up the adapter, memorize numbers, then suddenly build a professional identity. In a world where the floor could give out overnight. Of course, that leaves a mark. If you grew up teaching yourself how to get home before dark, how to wait, how to be bored without dying from it, then your defense strategy cannot be more noise. It has to be authority, not over other people, but over access. Because the fastest way to lose yourself in a world that keeps sorting and pinging, labeling and recruiting your attention, is to act as if every demand deserves an answer. So the protocol is simple, and it is colder than most self-help advice wants. Delay the entry point. Do not answer every text when it lands. Do not let every notification touch your nervous system barehanded. Turn off what is non-essential. Make people knock, metaphorically again. Let there be a gate between their urgency and your body. Then rebuild one older skill this culture quietly trained out of you, the lost art of chosen absence. Leave the phone in another room for an hour. Drive somewhere without filling every silent second. Stand in a grocery line without grabbing stimulation like an IV drip. Notice what happens first. Is it restlessness in your chest, a pull in your fingers, or a thought that you're missing something important? If you feel that, it is actually a good thing. That is how you keep your mind from being turned into public property. You do not win by disappearing. You win by deciding who gets real-time access to your thoughts, access to your focus, and to your body. So I'm curious about what boundary gave you the most peace. Once you finally stopped apologizing for it. Maybe the real relief is that you don't need a cleaner label to justify the way you move through the world. If you spent years feeling slightly out of phase, too analog for one room, and too online for another, too independent to fully belong, too adaptable to stay untouched by change, that isn't evidence that something in you developed wrong. It may be evidence that your nervous system was trained in a very rare kind of weather. You learned rules with a phone cord stretched down the hallway, a paper map in the glove compartment, a bike as transportation, a collect call that meant to come get me, and long gaps of silence nobody rushed to fill. Then adulthood arrived and the rules rewrote themselves in public. Suddenly identity had profiles, and friendship had notifications. Work had to be reinvented entirely, and even memory got outsourced to search bars and cloud storage. People are still trying to learn how to live through that rupture, without becoming fragmented by it, but you already did. That doesn't make you superior, it just makes you practiced. You know what it is to lose a familiar world, and somehow keep functioning anyway. You know how to update without surrendering every private part of yourself. You know the difference between access and intimacy, between visibility and being known, constant contact and real connection. So if this gave a name to something you felt for years, hold on to that, not as another box, but as proof that your pattern has a history. You are not behind, and you are not misfiled. You learned how to cross eras without abandoning your core, and in a culture that keeps trying to sort people into easy categories. That may be your strongest boundary of all.